WKSH, The Heat. Issues That Matter with Calvin Lester and Stephen Jackson on WKSH 97.7, The Heat.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. I'm Calvin Lester. Stephen Jackson's en route. We thank you for taking some of your time this evening to participate in what we pray is an enlightening and educational conversation about the things that are going on in our community. We got a little show we call it Issues That Matter. We thank you for sticking with us through these times. We know you have a lot of choices, but we really appreciate the fact that you guys are sticking with us. And so thank you for that. We'd also like if you would find us on social media, give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you see us on social media, if you see us on the YouTube while you're perusing Beyonce's internet, please give us a like and a follow and a shout. All those things help us get the message out. Speaking of message, we always take a moment to thank Brother Johnny Antoine. And I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the more and more I move around this city and these areas, the more I really realize how important information is. We are living in a high-tech world where information is at your fingertips, but very rarely is there information for us, by us, spoken by us, to us. And so we never take for granted that Johnny has provided this tremendous platform for us to discuss the things that are important to us from a decidedly community basis. And so if you want to participate in the conversation, there are several ways you can do it. You can call us at 318-779-0459, 318-779-0459, or like I said, if you're watching on Beyonce's internet, you can just give us a shout out in the chat and we will go to it. Well, want to hit a few topics. One of the things that I saw tonight, I believe, there is a virtual debate that's being held with some candidates, and it's being done by the students and leadership at Southern University. I'm not saying just because it's Southern, but I do appreciate the fact that some of the governor's candidates are sitting down with our young people to talk about higher education, because higher education is one of the most important issues that our state deals with. Our state legislature deals with a number of things. One of the things that they deal with more than anybody is our education system. Of course, they deal with criminal justice and things of that nature also, but it's really important for us to hear what the governor's candidates are going to say about our colleges or whatnot. So thank you for the folks at Southern University for participating in it, and thank you for those candidates that showed up. One of the things that happens about this time of the year, you know, people don't show up for the forums, the statewide forums. They feel like, you know, they don't have to answer questions. I just think it's kind of crazy for you to be running for a statewide office, Johnny, and be afraid to talk to the people that you're going to be representing. I mean, it's not like you're running for a local office where, you know, you've gone to the neighborhood association 4 or 5 times. I get it. But you're talking about a large state that is very ethnically and culturally diverse. You know, Northwest Louisiana is not like Northeast Louisiana. It's not like Central Louisiana. Certainly not like Southwest or Southeast Louisiana. Those regions are distinctly different. They have their own flavor, literally and figuratively. And to not want to sit down and talk to those folks just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So that's one of those things. Speaking of other news, I see where there's been a long conversation in Bossier City about this whole idea about term limits. And I see that both the city council in Bossier and the police jury in DeSoto Parish decided against term limits. And so I thought that was interesting. For many of us are old enough to remember when, you know, people said the term limits were going to be the best thing in the world, and it was going to guarantee that, you know, you'd have fresh new leaders and everybody would be better. And of course, a lot of those same people that were pushing term limits, you know, when it came down to term limits in their areas, just didn't support them. So I just kind of found it interesting that they didn't support term limits in the free state of Bossier, where everything is supposed to be better. So I just thought that was interesting. And of course, the DeSoto police jury decided no on term limits also. So
I don't blame them.
yeah.
You know, I don't. Now look, I'm not a proponent of being a perpetual career candidate. Are we in headlines or are we in segments?
Do the way you
We'll
want
come
to.
back and we'll come back and get on it. You in headlines?
Yeah, that's what.
Okay, I'm just jumping in here.
Go ahead.
We're gonna jump into that later on, but
Okay.
I'm not a proponent of career candidates or career politicians. But I don't think that. I think what tends to happen more often than not, and we can unpack this after the break, is when people start to see that their communities are changing, when people start realizing that the dynamics and the demographics of their community is changing, then they rush out and start talking term limits. Because really what Bossier should be talking about is why they don't have more black representation on their city council.
Yeah.
And so then what they do first is they come rig the system
Right.
to say, well, we're going to put term limits in place. Then we'll start drawing. Because
Right.
what Bossier should be hooping and hollering about is they had an opportunity to draw, instead of having it at large seats, these at large seats in Bossier, they should have drawn another black city council district over there in
course.
Bossier. That's what Bossier should be talking about.
Right.
DeSoto Parish, same thing.
Right.
It's becoming a more blacker, it's becoming blacker.
Right.
It's becoming a more minority urban district.
Right.
And instead of them talking about that,
Right.
the conversation become these anchor. I can't remember who was it said we get caught up in anchor conversations.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, the media, that's why I'm thankful for this show, Brother Johnny, because we can come in here and we can unpack some of this.
So why don't we go?
Yeah,
Take a quick break and come back on that, because that's a hot topic. So
Yeah,
listen,
term
this
limits.
is Issues That Matter. This is 97.7 The Heat, WKSH.
Black limits is what they call it.
Yeah, stick and stay with us on the other side of the break.
When we met, always knew I would feel that magic for you.
Issues That Matter with Calvin Lester and Stephen Jackson on WKSH 97.7 The Heat.
And we're back. We thank you for your time and attention. This is Issues That Matter. Our number, if you want to participate in the conversation, is 318-779-0459, 318-779-0459. Or if you're watching on Beyonce's internet, you can certainly give us a chat. While you're on Beyonce's internet, look for 97.7 The Heat. Subscribe, please. Put the bell on. Share it. You know, y'all share some of that other stuff. Share some good stuff, right? So before we left, we were talking about this whole term limit issue, and you've got Bossier City decided against term limits. They said they didn't want them, and the DeSoto police jury decided against term limits. And so when we went to the break, Stephen was talking about his thoughts, and before you get into this, Stephen, I wanna I'm not taking umbrage, but I want to take with you. I'm gonna take umbrage with a term. Okay.
Okay.
We use this term career politician,
Right.
as if it's a pejorative. It's negative, right? Politicians comes to the root word of politics, and those who studied it know politics is the science of who gets what, where, and when. That's politics, right? We don't talk poorly about career barbers.
Right.
We don't talk
Career
badly
teachers.
about career teachers, career educators,
Career
firefighters. Only when it comes down to understanding elected officials do we throw this career politician,
DJs.
right, as if that's a bad thing. Right. Now, I think we should differentiate between career politicians. Not necessarily. We should say effective politicians,
effective
and
leaders,
ineffective politicians, right? Because just because you've been elected 4 or 5 times doesn't mean that you're
right
effective.
No.
To me, to see if you've been effective in your position, what did the district look like when you started, and what has it changed to
right
over the time of your representation?
Right. Well,
what resources have you gotten from your political body to those neighborhoods?
Well, I just think that one of the things that we need to not buy into is these catchphrases.
Right.
And certain people out there, they beta test these phrases. Mm-hmm. They beta test it, and they see, oh, okay, well, this is catching. And right. They literally sit back and they spend millions of dollars beta testing how people respond to Obamacare, how you respond to Bidenomics. And they beta tested how you respond to career politicians. And career politician is something that they make it sound sleazy and slimy and bad. But in all actuality, the truth is most folks who get into public office, unless you've been a student of policy, you've been somebody who's understudied, had an opportunity to kind of sit under the tutelage of some folks, sit under the mentoring of some folks. Everybody's fresh when they come in. Right. And so you spend your first 2.5 years just trying to figure out budgets, engineering, design. A lot of people out here right now are promising things that they will never be able to deliver on. Right. And I'm saying it here on this radio station. There are people knocking on doors, shaking your hands, making promises that they know. Some know, some don't. But I'm telling you, some of this pie in the sky. Let me ask you this. Okay. I'm just going to ask a question. Where's the international airport?
Ain't had one.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask you this.
Okay.
Where is the municipal broadband?
Ain't got none.
Ain't got none. Can't do one either.
No.
Under the state law.
Right.
All right. It's so enshrined into state law.
Right.
They can't undo it if they wanted to undo it.
Right.
You know. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Where is the what was the other one? I'm missing one. Come on. The
Smart Cities?
Smart Cities Initiative. Where is that?
Ain't there.
Ain't gonna be one.
Right. again,
And I'm not saying we shouldn't aspire to these things.
I mean, you should aspire to the things, but so to me, the job of each body has a job, right? When you are an executive, you have to deal with a broader scope. You have to try to make the whole thing better. When you represent a district and a legislative body, your job is use your button to make things better where you are, right? And learn the process. So one of the first things that the folks that don't want to see you succeed tell you is, well, you shouldn't spend any money, or you don't need to go on trips, or you don't need to go to these conferences. When those conferences, that's where people are talking about best practices. So you can learn how they've done something successfully in city number one, that you can bring it back to your city, right? We're the only group that glorify our ignorance, and we have these scenarios and things don't change. And so when the public is less inclined to be enthusiastic about voting,
Right.
and you have to take more and more money, and you have to get on the radio and play Martin Luther King and say they bled and died for your right to vote. Well, what have you done since you've had these positions to move the agenda forward, or have you even crafted an agenda to make something happen?
Right.
You know, I agree with you that you should not be making promises, because you don't know. I mean, you can have the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? But what you should do is, I have an agenda where I would like to see this happen better, this happen better, this happen better. And sometimes it requires you to dig into the weeds. I can tell you there were scenarios where when I was an elected official for some time, there were some things that we wanted to do in Allendale that required us to work with the state legislature to pass some new rules so we could do what we wanted to do. But you have to figure out that it's the state law that's stopping you, then write the state law, wait for them to have a session, and get that done. That's not something that happens overnight.
Right.
That takes time. It takes diligence. And so to me, I think our people need to be aware of who's working, who's being diligent, who is pushing things forward, who is putting forth an agenda.
Put it on paper, man.
That's making something happen.
Put it on paper.
I
I don't mean to be a old kind of woman. Ain't that how it started out?
don't know.
You better put it on paper.
Right.
They need me for the next Labor Day Blues concert.
I got you. The song stylings of Stephen P. Jackson. Blues
I need to be
Holidays.
on that. I need to be on that next Labor Day chitlin circuit, bro.
I got you.
But Kev, you are not wrong at all, and that's why we got to this conversation about term limits. I'm not against term limits, and I'm not saying that a person should be able to sit in office for as long as they want. I'm not saying that. I'm being very clear and I'm being very emphatic. What I'm saying is, do not let people trick us into a conversation when we should actually be talking about other things.
Right.
Because what I wholeheartedly believe Bossier should be talking about is why they refused to move away from the system where they have at-large council members. You know who else had at-large positions?
Ooh.
Caddo Parish and the city of Shreveport.
Of course.
And it was a lawsuit filed by, who?
Hillary Huckabee filed a lawsuit.
Hillary Huckabee
Right.
filed a lawsuit in one place.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't E. Edward Jones a part of the lawsuit?
They were all part of those litigations.
Yeah.
Yes.
We just left a tribute to Dr. E. Edward Jones.
Right.
And so it took litigation
Right.
to move away from a citywide election, because what was happening was, if you electing folks citywide, you don't have you have the majority advantage. Your people will never get elected.
Right.
And so Bossier realizes that their demographics are changing
Right.
over there. And so what do? Because what's happening is the people are leaving the city limits of Bossier,
Right.
and they're going to Halton, they're
Right.
going to Benton, they're going to what's that thing, Red Shoe.
Red Shoot.
They're
Yeah.
going to all, and so they're getting out of Bossier.
Right.
And so
Side note, everybody is all swinging about how Bossier is growing. It ain't Bossier City, baby.
it's Bossier Parish.
It just like people leaving Shreveport going to the suburbs, same thing happening.
So everything's happening in Bossier. And so this notion that they want to do, so let's set the conversation about why they don't have district level elections over there and start talking about, term limits. We need term limits
Well,
first.
you remember what happened?
What?
So, I'm going to remember his name. I think his name is Mr. Pierce. It's either Pierce or Grace, but I think it's Pierce. George Pierce was the president of the Bossier NAACP. They filed a lawsuit against the city of Bossier City, and Bossier Parish, modeling the Bull lawsuit, right? Saying that African Americans don't have an opportunity to select a candidate of their choice, both on the city council, on the police jury, and on the school board. And literally, as the case was going to the Supreme Court, it was literally at the steps of the courthouse. The folks in Bossier City decided that they would carve out an opportunity for an African American to be elected to the city council, an African American to be elected to the school board, and an African American to be elected to the police jury. And that's how the three Darby brothers got elected to the council, the school board, and the police jury. And it was done to effectively negate the lawsuit. And I don't know if the lawsuit got, what is the word I'm using my terms where the issue may have been moot at that point, because they said, well, no, you just elected somebody of your choice in these areas. But to your point, they kept that system because, in point of fact, as the population of the city has gone down, and as a population of the unincorporated areas and areas in Bossier Parish has gone up to the Red Shoots and the Haltons, as you mentioned, there should be an additional African American district drawn in Bossier Parish.
Absolutely.
On the school board,
On the city
and on
council.
the police jury, and on city
On the
council.
city council. Right.
You're right. And
Absolutely.
so, in order to
In
not,
fact, I probably, if you really look down at Bossier City, you probably could make an argument that 2 seats probably, or 2 new seats, or at least a swing seat
yeah,
should be
because I
drawn.
think they have 5 on their deal.
Yeah.
So that you should probably have a 2-2-1 or
But this whole, we're going to have 2 citywide. Nah.
Yeah.
Man, no.
yeah,
Because what's going to happen is, and here's where the chicken's going to really come home to roost. One day, them citywide seats going to become black.
right.
That's when they really going.
Hollow. Mm-hmm. Right. Well,
And then they will have duped them into doing the whole term limit thing.
correct.
But shoot, I mean, why? Here's where I drew the line on, and here's what made me think about it. Woody Wilson was the administrator for Caddo Parish for 20, 25 years. And there were things that I used to question Woody Wilson about. And one day, I can't remember who it was, but somebody pulled me to the side and said, do you think 30 years ago, people were questioning Billy Hannah and all these other folks when they were having the take home car and all that,
Right.
and where they lived and all that other stuff? And I said, you know what? Why shouldn't we be afforded the same opportunity to work, move around, not do any corruption or anything? But why is it when we get to positions of leadership, we get to positions of power, all of a sudden we got to put all of these rules in place? Oh my God,
Right.
the melon people are coming.
Right.
We need more rules. You can only do 8 years and you're out.
Yeah.
Okay, 12 and you're out. Now listen, my personal belief is I think if you can't get what you need to get done in 12 years, you probably need to go home.
Well,
All right. And 12 years to me, 8 years, 12 years is enough, because if you hit the ground with an agenda and you hit the ground running and you know what you're doing, you don't need to be down there for 20, 25 years. But I don't want to see us putting arbitrary rules in place, buying into a talking point simply because the dynamics and the demographics are changing.
I mean, my position on that is, and I agree with you. I look at it from this perspective. If you have effective, consistent leadership, why change because the people said it's time up?
Right.
I think that if you are elected and the people want you and you've done a good job and you've been affected, if you want to offer yourself to serve and the people want you to continue to serve, I think you should be able to continue to serve. Now, to your point, do I think that you may be as effective in year 12 as you are in year 1 or 2? Maybe, maybe not. You may be more effective because you may have worked the kinks out where everything is working on autopilot. But I just believe if you are doing a good job, then the people should be allowed to elect you if that's what they choose to. Now, I don't agree with us just electing people because we know them. I think there should be some measurables. You know, if my district in year 2010 looks like it did in 2002, then maybe I don't need to go back if I haven't gotten anything done. But if the district is looking well, is moving in a good direction, and I would like to stay another 4 years and offer myself up, I should have that opportunity. The people should be able to vote. Because when you have these arbitrary situations, what happens is you put more weight on the staff. The people who are not elected, they become much more powerful than the people who are elected that are your representatives. And they don't necessarily listen to those interests. So, you know, I think that people should be able to vote as many times as they want to, you know, if you're being effective. But if you're not doing a good job, then, hey, you should go home. And I think that should be the standard, you know, of if you're effective, you got a chance. If you don't, hey, I mean, why should we continue to reward mediocrity and failure? I don't think we should.
No,
so
not at all.
You know,
not
that's
at all. What's up, John?
You building a relationship, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's what I think. You're building a relationship where you're down, you know, state representative or
Right.
something like that, so you can help move things forward.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, then having somebody new every 4 years or new every whatever.
And that is how you keep the elected official small and you grow the bureaucracy.
Right.
Because what the bureaucracy understand, the people who just gonna come down there, they know they gonna get a check on the 15th and the 31st.
Right. They'll wait you out.
They'll just wait you out.
Right.
I had a guy.
Right.
We're gonna say this and go to break.
Okay.
I had a guy. I wish I could call his name on the air.
Don't.
But he called me. No. This was a good thing. He was frustrated, mad at me, because he wanted to come and buy some adjudicated property, right? Mm-hmm. So they called the parish office. And you know what the parish folks told him?
Right.
Wait until January. We can't do this until January. Well, what happens, everybody know, if they know I'm running for a state representative, House District 2, number 56 on your ballot, Stephen Jackson. But I will not be on the parish commission come January 8th or 24th, whatever day our new term starts. I won't be there. And so what the bureaucracy was saying was, wait them out.
Right.
And because people know I don't just sell adjudicated property in District 3. If you can't come and show that you have the ability to do what it is that you're trying to do,
Right.
you have to show that you can get the property, because we can go into another conversation about this. But I called the administrator on three-way with him, and I said, listen to what this young man is saying. And I said, when did that become a rule?
Right.
And we had it out, and I brought it down to the commission meeting, and I called that gentleman up. I think his name is Ross. Last name is Ross, or first name is Ross.
Right.
James Ross, brother James Ross. That's his name. And we talked, and I brought the director of public works up, and I say, why are y'all waiting till January
Right.
to do this?
Right.
Why can't he buy his property right now?
Right.
And so what we can't get duped into doing, because the bureaucracy, you have to remember the bureaucracy, them people be there 25,
Right.
30, 40 years.
Right. They're not going anywhere.
They're not going nowhere.
Right.
And guess who hired them?
Right.
The
Some
people
folks-
who came before
38,
us.
yeah. and you know, and those are fine people. They
Right.
do a great
They
job.
do a great job.
However, they don't have to respond to the public.
Right.
And so they might want to take a shortcut on something that doesn't matter to them, because at the end of the day, I did what I was supposed to do. I ate my cheese sandwich at work and I turned my hours in.
Right. And the
But-
rules said
Right.
that you can only buy 2 pencils, and you bought 3 pencils and
Right.
got doggone it.
We ain't having it.
I got to buy this slam. Come
Right.
send him to jail. He bought
Right.
3 pencils.
Right. As opposed to, as an elected official, you say, wait a minute, man, let's look at this thing a whole different way. I just think it's a matter of being responsive. I, again, believe that it takes time to learn what it is you're doing. If you're trying to do something. Now, let me be clear, and we can go to break on this. If you're just down here wearing a good suit and wearing a nice,
Right. And just talking.
you know, nice pantsuit or a nice dress or whatever, and styling and profiling, then
Rapping
no.
and bebopping.
Yeah. You can get from down there, because we don't need no more rappers. You know, we want to listen to some music. We listen to 97.7 The Heat, where we play
What
what
we
you
wanna
want to
play.
play. Yeah, that's
And
what
say
we get
what
our-
we need to say.
Right, that's where we get our music from. But we don't need all that. So let's go to a break, and we'll talk a little bit more about a couple of things happening in the city. You're listening to 97.7 The Heat, WKSH. We play what we want to play and say what we want to say. Stick with us.
Smile. In your eyes shine pictures of this time for us. I melt with love when our lips kiss. Silent words move the earth and shake my world, but nothing means as much. Your smile, like that special touch. Your smile from your
Yeah. What we getting
Issues
into?
That Matter
I bring
with
us
Calvin
in.
Lester and Stephen Jackson on WKSH 97.7 The Heat.
And we are back. We have been talking about issues that matter to you. This is Stephen Jackson. That's Calvin Lester. And we always thank Brother Johnny for opening
Yes.
his microphone up to us. And Calvin, if they want to call in, what would that number be?
That number is 318-779-0459, 318-779-0459.
Yeah, Calvin. So we got. Y'all know it's election season.
Right.
And shameless plug, I'm on the ballot, number 56 on your ballot. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. It's a poor man that don't toot his own horn.
Right. But we one race that's been mysteriously quiet
Okay.
has been the attorney. I'm not going to say it's been quiet. It's been quiet up here.
Yes.
The attorney general's race.
Yes.
Let's unpack that real quick.
Let's go.
Before we get out. You have the solicitor general,
Liz Murrow.
Liz Murrow, and she's running. She's the number 2 for Jeff Landry.
That's right.
Then you have
Hold on one second. Solicitor General is a person that when somebody sues the state of Louisiana or Louisiana sues some person, that's the person that more often than not goes to court that represents the state.
right.
Now, sometimes under the Jeff Landry situation, they represent the state in some foolishness.
Right.
Like, for example, I went to New Orleans and I was in the United States federal courtroom when Liz Murrow tried to argue to the United States Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that they needed to end the lawsuit that makes sure that we have at least one African American on the Supreme Court.
Right.
She was arguing to get rid of that. Okay,
Right.
let's keep going.
No. So then you have John Stefanski, who's a state representative who,
Right.
by the way, chaired
Reapportionment.
chaired the reapportionment. He chaired House and Governmental Affairs. He chaired the reapportionment committee that did the reapportionment, which continued to deny Louisiana the opportunity to have an additional minority seat in Congress,
as well as refusing to reapportion the Bessie Board,
The Bessie Board.
of Education,
Right.
and the Public Service Commission,
Public Service Commission,
and the Louisiana Supreme Court.
Louisiana Supreme Court.
Right.
So if we are going to look at the state and talk about what these numbers are,
Correct.
what some folks are saying is, well, what is it, 1/3 or 2/3? Or
1/3 of 6.
1/3 of
is
6
2.
is 2. And so if 1/3 of 6 is 2 for Congress, then 1/3 of 6 is 2 for the Supreme Court, and we only got
Yes,
one.
sir. Yes, sir.
1/3 of 6 for the Public Service Commission. It's the same population. It's the same state.
Is the math.
It's the same state. And
Right.
so why shouldn't a 1/3 argument apply across the board?
And the argument can be made for the 1/3. This is something that you're going to be interested in, Mr. State Representative Elect. We
Number
call those
56
things
on your
a
ballot.
minute. When you talk about apportioning the state representative seat and the state senate seats,
Right.
because I mean you
right.
got what 104 state representative seats,
104, 105,
104,
one or the other.
105. So
And
a
then
third of them,
39.
39 in the Senate. So I mean, you should have a third each.
Right.
So at least 30
Yeah.
in the state rep,
Yeah.
side, and a third of 40 is what? That's like 10, like
Don't
12.
embarrass me on here by no
Well,
math now.
listen,
See,
I'm a
2
lawyer. Look.
plus 2 is 4.
Yeah, I'm a lawyer. Look, my lawyer thing is we can only do thus by a third, so we should be able to get that. But no,
John Stefanski, who
yes,
he chaired that process.
right,
Then you have Marty Malley, who's a Republican prosecutor.
right,
And then you have 2 Democrats, Lindsey Cheek and Perry Walker.
right,
Both are trial attorneys.
right.
What I think is interesting and what I find interesting about this race is that the Republicans have seemed to galvanize. First of all, they pushed. So John Belton was in the race, and they seemed to abandon him. He was going to run as an independent, and they seemed to abandon him when the whole Trump thing became. We're going to do the Trump model, but
Right.
make the MAGA argument. And so Liz Murrow, but what I find interesting is Stefanski is the poster child for what they did in the legislature this past session.
Right.
And they just wholesale abandoned him
I mean, because
to go run with Liz Murrow.
I mean, listen, man. If you want 8 years of Jeff Landry and his posse running the state,
Jesus Christ.
you can just stay at home.
Jesus
because they're gonna give you Jeff Landry and they're gonna give you Liz Murrow.
Who
Now-
went to, you say she went to the court and said Louisiana does not need an
Yes.
additional black.
Yes. In fact, I was in the courtroom. Her argument was
What y'all do? Y'all ain't, well, I guess with all the bails and stuff.
so she's in the courtroom and she made the argument
It
and she
wasn't a
said,
white chair.
yeah,
Folding chair.
and she said that, well, so interestingly enough, the judge that was presiding over the hearing was Judge Carl Stewart from Shreveport. And so we were there, and so she made the argument that, well, we've done enough, and we've proven that everybody gets along, and people can elect who they need to. We don't need the system that we have. We can go back to the way it was. And so Judge Stewart says, well, let me ask you this. The plaintiffs are taking a position that if, what stops the legislature from going back to the old system and drawing these districts so that you don't have African Americans in the judiciary? Oh, they would never do that. And literally, that's just how you reacted. Literally, every black person in the courtroom was like, "She." And what was funny is everybody had the same reaction, and we had to catch ourselves because you had a room full of lawyers. There were a bunch of judges, people who are that know what's going on, and they was like, man, sit yourself down. As soon as if they give you a chance, before we get back to Baton Rouge from New Orleans, they're gonna change them districts. Heck yeah, they're gonna do that because they've done it every time. Because this is the same legislature when the Supreme Court said you must draw an extra district, they did like their friends in Alabama, sent it up without it. Like, I'm gonna dare you not to. And the Supreme Court said, I tell you what, that's okay. We're gonna appoint a special master, and they're gonna draw the districts, and they're gonna draw the district in time for the congressional election next year. So that's what we got at Attorney General, and imagine what things would have been like in this state if you did not have John Bell to balance off that foolishness
With
that
the
Landry
veto
was
pen.
doing.
Right.
Because while you had the Attorney General on that foolishness, John Bell sent someone to represent his office, and he said, I understand what the Attorney General is saying. I'm the governor, and I agree with the black folks. And I'm filing my own brief to say this is what the deal is, And it was amazing. You had lawyers from, the United States Department of Justice. Thank God we had a Democrat in the White House. He sent somebody down there to argue against it. The Lawyers Commission on Civil Rights had somebody. The ACLU had somebody. A number of former and currently elected African American judges had their lawyer there that was arguing for it. So, but no, you need to have somebody in the Attorney General's office that's going to be aggressive about dealing with those issues. And let me tell you another office, since we're going to talk about it, an office that is not getting a lot of conversation, and that's the Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Most people know that the Secretary of State's office, they keep the records. They are the repository of state records and things of that nature. And they do things like when you file your business, the LLCs or corporations. But a lot of people don't realize that the Secretary of State's one of their primary functions is to be the chief elections officer for the state.
Right.
So if you're wondering why the folks in New Orleans and Shreveport got their ballots late, but the people in Maringouin and Cocodrie got theirs early, it may be that your Secretary of State gave them other folks a head start. Because some of y'all live in these urbanized areas, and I guess y'all wasn't as important. So, these elections are important, and some of these offices may not be sexy, but they're real important because, we fought too hard to have our rights. as it relates to voting and things of that nature, for us to give it away to someone that's not going to protect the sanctity of our right to vote. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing on that. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, I think one, and I got a call about this yesterday, the local registrar voter is not responsible for the absentee ballots getting out late.
Right.
Let's put that out there. Let's put a lid on that now.
Right. Tell them where all of the ballots come
The
from.
ballots come from Baton Rouge.
Right.
It comes from a printer. The
Yes.
state, the Secretary of State is the chief election officer for the state of Louisiana.
Correct.
And so the registrars respond up to the Secretary of State's office, as well as the clerk of court.
Right.
So locally, in reality, the clerk of court locally is your chief election officer.
Right.
The registrar is just the keeper of the voter records.
Right.
Sooner or later, I bet there's going to be a push. Oh, well, you know, we can merge.
They tried to do that in New Orleans.
We can merge the registrar.
They tried to pull that once before,
It's
and they
coming.
voted it down.
Watch, it's coming.
Oh, yeah.
It's coming. You know, we don't really need
Yeah.
a registrar but you know, for folks who don't know how important the registrar was, at one time the registrar was the person who literally sat at the door.
Right.
And when you see the pictures of the people hitting Martin Luther King and Bayard Rustin and all those folks in the head with bricks and stuff, saying we going to lunch, you can't come register. That's what the registrar voter was back in the day.
Yeah, ask Big Mama and your great grandmama.
Right.
Yeah, you know about how many bubbles in a
and
bar of soap.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, have to recite the Constitution backwards in the preamble and stuff
Right.
like that. That's who.
Look
the
at the
registrar
opening scene of Selma.
Yes, it's
when
accurate.
when Oprah goes down to when Oprah is trying to attempt to register to vote,
Right.
and she says, "I don't want to tell Mr. Johnson or whatever the man name is, you down here keeping up all that trouble, gal."
Right.
That was your registrar of voters.
Right.
And so if you don't think that role is important, you're sleeping through a great revolution, as
That's
Dr.
right.
King would say. But Secretary of State office is responsible for sending out absentee ballots, not your local registrar. So
Right.
please don't put that on your local registrar.
Right.
And if you have issues with that, you need to call the Secretary of State's office.
Right.
Because I mean, think about it, folks. We're voting right. People are voting right now.
Correct.
People have the right to vote right here, right now.
Right.
If you signed up to get your absentee ballot.
Right.
And early voting starts next Saturday.
Right.
Next Saturday is early voting.
Right.
So it's important that, you know, if you are one of the 13 or 12,000, I think somewhere around that range of people who got absentee ballots, encourage them to get it in. Encourage them to get it in as soon as possible so that they can know that they got it. I would love to see us move to a state, but right now it's been prohibited as a state law, where we don't have election ballot drop boxes.
Well, maybe that you can use that as part of your platform when
Yeah.
you get elected.
Yeah, and you know, there has to be a secure way to do that, because I get it. You don't want people just stuffing drop boxes. You don't want people just going through, taking advantage of your elderly,
Right.
getting their ballot, marking it up for it. But there has to be a secure way where folks can sign off on their ballot, seal it, and securely turn it to use the police substations or use the sheriff substations to be your drop place.
They do it in Houston,
Yeah.
and the boxes are in open areas with plenty of light and cameras on them.
Right.
So
And listen, the parish commission puts the bill for the election stuff anyway. Just tell your registrar, hey, we want a police officer
Right.
to man.
Right.
we want to hire. We'll do it as a hire, and the week of early voting or whatever, for a full week or two,
Right.
we're gonna have this officer here
right,
in a unit,
by this
post
drop
certified
box.
by this drop box,
Right.
and
Right.
they're gonna make sure that nobody's coming in
Right.
with
Right. Trying to bust up the box. Or
right,
something.
bust up the box and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that just, or swap it out.
Yeah.
Wasn't that what they alleged in one of the cases, that somebody jumped out of a van, stole the box, and put a new one out?
Yeah, but they never could find that tape. So listen,
Lord Jesus. But
We-
but I want to wrap up with this.
Go ahead.
We talked about an issue, and we talked about it offline, and Calvin said it best offline. You talk about the man who just got out of barber school. you don't go. And this is not for people who are new barbers, so don't take this as a slight on you. But there's a code on the black side of town. What's that code, Cal?
You don't go to the barber that just got a barber school.
You don't, when you are getting ready to do a major surgery, you don't go to the med student that just walked across the stage. In fact, I don't think the law allows that person to even touch a person without having X amount of hours.
That's why they call it a residency.
A residency. They have to do a residency first before they can even go out on the floor by themselves, meaning they have to study under somebody who's been doing this for a while. Right? Teachers, before they get completely certified and before they're eligible to graduate, they have to go do what's called student teaching.
Yes.
Meaning they have to learn under a master teacher first. And they have to have that stuff signed off on.
Right.
Law enforcement.
Right.
Police officers, sheriffs, firefighters.
Rookie period probation.
They have to go through peer probation. The police officers that you see more often than not wearing a cap. When you see two police officers in the unit, the one with the cap on is the rookie. And they're shadowing a veteran officer. And so don't allow our politics to be the only place where you don't have to have any experience. You can be a blank slate. People running around here, what people are trying to figure out is if I can perfect the art of being a blank slate. Because ain't nobody said nothing bad about me. Ain't nobody mad at me. I ain't made nobody upset. And so if I just run as a blank slate, I'll be good. The danger of doing that is, as Johnny said when you get out, when we was out there, basically what you're doing is you'll be sending people down to make important decisions about your livelihood, your way of living, your quality of life, and they learning.
OJT.
On the job learning, on the job training. Why?
Yep.
That makes no sense.
Yep.
And we saw it here in the flesh in Shreveport for a little while. Not gonna call no names.
Right.
And we see it a lot around the country in our communities. We elect people who do not have the experience. Some of them, I'm just gonna be very candid about it. Some of them don't have a backbone to stand up and speak truth to power. And the moment somebody flash a free meal, I'm not gonna go there, but something came into my head. But the moment somebody flashes a free meal,
or threatens to say something bad about them,
threatening to say something bad about them, oh my God, they get scared, and next thing you know, our community is left out.
Yep.
We can't continue to afford that.
Nope.
This is not a walk in the park.
Right. And this has been Issues That Matter. And this is 97.7 The Heat. Thank you for listening. Y'all have a great week, and we will see you on Thursday. Take care and be blessed.
Issues That Matter with Calvin Lester and Stephen Jackson on WKSH 97.7 The Heat. No matter when you listen, morning, afternoon, evening, or overnight, you'll always feel the heat on 97.7 WKSH The Heat.
Not like you do, not like you do. No one can love